Well, I'm glad you're here this morning. You picked a good Sunday to be here. If you know me, you're like, you say that every Sunday, PC. That's right, because every Sunday is a good Sunday to be at Rolando Church. Hey, so today, if you don't know this, our church is part of a community church movement. So 8 locations, 13 congregations. And today, all over the locations from Baja California all the way to LA, they are talking about the movement moment. It's something that we do this here once a month, except that we're not doing it today. You know why? Because the movement moment is about Rolando Church. So everywhere in our locations today, they're talking about how we went from one service to 2 services, and they're celebrating that with us. Now, some of you might look around and you say, why are we in 2 services if there's so much room here inside the auditorium? Well, let me tell you, if you serve in the kids ministry or the students ministry, you know that it's been crowded, and we have outgrown our kids ministry and our student ministry as big as it is because we have a lot of kids, a lot of students. And so going to 2 service creates more space there for them to bring their friends. And also it creates more space in here for you to bring your friends. So if you like these pews to be full, just invite your neighbors and your friend and tell them what an amazing thing God is doing at Rolando Church. Yes? Great, awesome. For the 2 or 3 people that are with me on this, you got something special today as I continue to share on this series called Nope. So if you like to take notes, you can pull up your app right now, or you can open your notebook or whatever you write your notes in. And we are on week 3, the Way of Contentment. If you're new here, we're going through all the ways of Jesus. What that means is 52 commands of Jesus that he gave us in the New Testament. We're going through every single one of them this year of 2023. And we have come to this one, the Way of Contentment, where Jesus is talking about something that we should say nope to. And this something is greed. He's like, you should say nope to greed. And it is part of the beware statements of Jesus. So we have looked at 2 beware statements the last week. Today we're looking at another beware statement where Jesus says, beware of greed. And we all have seen beware signs when we go out in public, or caution signs. For example, you may have seen a beware of dog sign on someone's fence, or you may have seen caution, steep grade going down a mountain. But there are some caution signs out there that are not very usual, and I wanted to share some of them with you, if that's okay, yeah? All right, so here's the first one that I find very interesting. Beware wild animals and, I guess, wild children. We should have this sign in our patio after the service, right? Here's another one. Beware of Bob. I don't know who Bob is, but he sounds very dangerous, and he's someone that we should be. Any Bobs in here? No. Okay, oh, good. All right, next one. Touching wires causes instant death, and you'll be fined $200. Like, as if it's not enough, right? Like, all right. Here's another one. Drunken people crossing. I guess there's a lot of drunken people in this town. They had to put up a sign, so beware of drunken people. Here's the next one. No ninjas swimming in this lake. I don't know what that is. It looks like a ninja to me, so I thought it was interesting. And here's one more. Don't let worries kill you. Let the church help. Some of you will get it later. But hey, here at Rolando, we do not want to kill you. We actually just want to share with you what Jesus has taught in this beware of greed statement, which comes from Luke chapter 12, verse 15. It's a short verse, and we're going to talk about this and other verses following. But here, Jesus said, beware, guard against every kind of, say it out loud, greed. Life is not measured by how much you own. That's what Jesus said. And greed is the opposite of contentment. And greed is also this need for more. That's what greed is. And Jesus says, beware, guard against every kind of greed. And this unhealthy desire that greed brings into our lives is that desire to say like, I have to have this. I have to have that. It's being driven by this need to have more. More money, more power, more success, more recognition, more control, more stuff, more. That's what greed drives us to. Now, there's all kinds of greed, and Jesus says, beware, and I want you to protect yourselves from it. That's the teaching of Jesus today. So, as we continue, the first thing that I want to tell you is, if you're not familiar with the Bible, I want to give you the context in which this verse that we just read is part of. And it's found in the Gospel of Luke. You can read it later, chapter 12. And Jesus is teaching a large crowd. So like a large crowd, Jesus is teaching, and he's teaching some important stuff. He's talking about heaven. He's talking about hell. He's talking about eternity. He's talking about the kingdom of God, and he's teaching them. When all of a sudden, this guy raises his hand, and he asks Jesus a question. And this question had nothing to do with the teaching of Jesus. Look, verse 13. Then someone called from the crowd, "Teacher, please tell my brother to divide our father's estate with me." It's like, so it's funny. It's in the middle of this lecture that Jesus is giving about eternal things. This guy's like, "Hey, can you tell my brother to share my father's estate with me and give me my portion that I deserve?" It was like so out of context, so out of whack. It's almost as if he was like, "Hey, Jesus, why don't you start a show called Judge Jesus? And later we can change it to Judge Judy. But hey, Judge Jesus, that sounds like a hit on TV." And it's almost like he's trying to get something out of Jesus. And Jesus doesn't play along. Jesus is like, "You know what, interrupting me, so I'll just use this opportunity to teach you something." So look at verse 14. Jesus replied, "Friend, who made me a judge over you to decide such things as that?" Then he said, "Beware, guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own." You see that? At this point, everyone in the crowd is like, "Ooh, burn," right? Like, and they probably had a question too, and then they're like, "Never mind, I'm not going to ask Jesus a question because he's going to burn me," right? But Jesus just took the opportunity to say, "Hey, I'm not a judge to decide those things, but I want to teach you, since you are asking me about this subject, I want to teach you about the danger of greed." And here is the problem with greed, and I want you to write this down. It's in your notes. It's in your fill-in app. Greed deceives and convinces me that if I have more, then I'll be. And those of you who love taking notes, you're probably shaking right now like, "What is the word to put on this fill-in?" Well, you know what? I don't have one because this is personal. It's the own words that you choose. And I want you to pause and think about this right now. I want you to think, okay, greed deceives and convinces me that if I just have more, what is it that you're going to put there? Then I'll be, what is it that you're going to put there? For this guy, it was his dad's money. If I just have more of my dad's inheritance, then I will be happy. And I'm going to give you a few examples because I want to help you to think through this and come up with words for yourself. But don't let these examples limit you. I really want you to search your heart right now and put in your own words. But maybe you put there, if I just have more money, then I'll be secure. Maybe. But what if the issue is deeper and it's the issue of fear or scarcity mindset? It will never be enough. Because you're like, okay, if I have more money, then I'll be secure. But then you can double your pay, triple your income, and you're still going to feel insecure because the issue is fear and this scarcity mindset. Or maybe what you wrote down is, if I just have more recognition, then I will be respected. Maybe. But what if the deeper issue is self-acceptance? For example, what if the deeper issue is, if I have more recognition, then I will be more respected, because you need that people-pleasing acceptance for you to feel like you're someone or somebody. It's like you don't have that self-acceptance, so you need for somebody to tell you. Or maybe you wrote, if I just have more power, then I'll be in control. And you're like, okay, maybe you're one of those people that you don't like to be told what to do. You're like, I hate to be told what to do, but I love telling people what to do. So you're like, yeah, if I have more power, then I'll be in control. But what if the deeper issue in you is pride, or maybe just lack of trust, especially from those who were in power over you, and you know, like they abused their power over you. So these are some examples, but I want you to think about what are the words that you are going to put there, that if only I had more of this, then I would be that. And Jesus is saying, you know, your contentment, your happiness doesn't rely on external things. It actually comes from within. Greed uses these external things to deal with some internal matters, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It always leaves us wanting more. It always leaves us needing more. It always leaves us chasing more, looking for what's the next thing, right? Like the next dollar, the next success, the next word of approval, the next spouse. So I saw some elbows there. And all of that, it just steals your contentment. It steals your joy, right? So here, now that you know the context of which Jesus is speaking to, he uses this opportunity to, number two, give us a picture of what greed is. He gives us a picture, and he tells a story. It's found in verse 16. Then he told them a story. A rich man had a fertile farm that produced fine crops. He said to himself, what should I do? I don't have room for all my crops. Then he said, I know. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. Then I'll have room enough to store all my wheat and other goods, and I'll sit back and say to myself, my friend, you have enough stored away for years to come. Now take it easy. Eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool! You will die this very night. Then who will get everything you worked for? What a story, right? Like, I love how Jesus is so smart, and he's able to come up with a story right away to answer the question of that man who wanted him to judge his father's estate. Now, it shows us here, Jesus, he's like, you know, this is what greed looks like. This is what greed sounds like just hoarding and just acquiring more and more to use it for the moment. That's what greed is like. But then God calls this guy a fool. Who wants to be called a fool by God, right? Not me. But God is like, hey, you fool. And why does he call him fool? Jesus, he never rebuked anyone for having money or for being able to make money. In and of itself, it's okay to be rich, to be wealthy, to make money and to know how to make money. So that's not why he called him a fool. But there are three reasons why God called him a fool that I think it's important for us to take a look at. Here's the first one. Write this down. God called him a fool because he thought only of himself. When you look at how Jesus told the story, Jesus used 11 personal pronouns, I and my, when he quoted this man. My crops, my barns, I know, I'll do. It was all about him. He made it all about him. He didn't thank God. He didn't fall on his knees and say, like, God, thank you so much for you have given me the ability to acquire this wealth and you have given me blessing and abundance. He didn't thank God. He didn't ask God, help me to steward this well. He didn't think of others that might have a need and that he could help with his wealth. He made it all about him. And God says, that's why you are a fool, because you're making it all about yourself. He thought everything that came from him, it was just for him. And that was very selfish. This was his first mistake. Now, here's the second reason why God calls him a fool. Because he thought only of his present pleasure. Do you remember when he said, he's like, oh, I know what I'm going to do. Now that I have all these big, full barns, I will take it easy and eat, drink, and be merry. Again, there's nothing wrong with eating and drinking and being merry and enjoying life, the life that God has given you. But there is everything wrong with making that your ultimate goal, to make that your ultimate pursuit in life. To say, my purpose here on earth is just to eat, drink, and be merry. That's my ultimate pursuit in life. Now, that's foolish. That's why God says, you fool. God wants us to enjoy good gifts that He has given to us, right? Think about this. Let's talk about eating, since he was talking about eating. Imagine if everything that we ate tasted like broccoli, right? It would be terrible, like broccoli ice cream, like broccoli cake, broccoli steak, right? It's like, so bland. And God is like, no. Let's create a plethora of flavors that we can enjoy, that we can savor, that we can know the difference between one thing or another. And that's totally fine. He wants us to enjoy life as He has given to us in His creation. But God doesn't want us to live for like present pleasure, for the pleasure of our flesh, our sinful desires, to say, oh, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to indulge myself with all the wealth and richness that God has given me or that I have acquired. No, He has more for us. That's why He says, this man is such a fool. And here's the third reason. He didn't think at all about the shortness of this life. I find it very interesting in the story that he has acquired all this wealth. And he's like, what am I going to do with it? Oh, I know, I'm going to store it up. Because I can like put it all in a barn, then I can live off of it for the rest of my life. And God is like, you're such a fool, because you're going to die tonight. And then who's going to enjoy all of those things that you have worked so hard and stored for yourself? He forgot that life is short, that our days are numbered, that we don't know when our life here on earth is over. Look at in James chapter 4, verse 13 through 15. Now, listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to do this or that, we'll go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make money. Why you do not even know what will happen tomorrow? What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. Did you catch the little visual illustration that James uses here to talk about the shortness of life? He says, our life is nothing but a mist. Now, in the New Testament, they didn't have such a bottle like this that you could spray, but they were very familiar with mist, with perfume and other things. And so when Jesus is telling them life is nothing but a mist, He's making a point that life on earth is short. It's here, and then it's gone, just like that. Life on earth is temporary. It's here, and then it's gone. Life on earth will end sometime soon. Now, God says, even though life on earth is so short, it's here and then it's gone, I have given you a soul that will last forever, for all eternity. And I have given you, while you are here in this short life that's here and it's gone, while you are here, I have given you a purpose to glorify God and to serve other people. I want you to use your gifts, I want you to use your resources so that you can bring glory to God and you can bring help to those who are in need. And He's like, yes, life is short on this planet. It's here and it's gone, just like a mist. It's really hard for us to embrace that because we invest so much of our energy, time, and money and effort on the life here and now. But I want you to imagine, what if you were to live a really long life? 90, 95, maybe 100 years. When you compare that to all eternity, it's like a mist. It's here and it's gone. Think about all your accomplishments. Think about all the money and all the time that you invested in your education to get that one degree, that one day it's going to be gone. That's the good news for those of you who have a student debt, right? Because you're like, hey, it's here now, it's wearing you, but it's going to be gone soon. Don't worry about it. Or maybe something as honorable as 20 or 25 years of service in the Navy. Very honorable. However, it's here and it's gone. It puts everything in perspective, and Jesus is saying, hey, watch out for greed, because greed will tell you that it's all here now. And God is like, no, it's not. Just like this, you'll be in eternity. What are you doing to make sure that you go there in heaven with Jesus? And for these reasons, he says that man was foolish. Now, some of you came today and are like, oh, I'm sure Pastor Christian is going to talk about like an inspiring message. And I'm telling you that life is short and none of your accomplishment will matter in a matter of years. You're like, wah, wah, wah. So, all right, let's pick this up. All right, so what's the solution to this problem? Here you go, number 3. Here's the solution. How do we make sure that greed or any kind of greed will not take us away from God, away from the ways of Jesus, away from our spiritual journey? So Jesus, he goes on verse 21, and this is what he says. He says, yes, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth, but not have a rich relationship with God. Jesus is saying, hey, a rich relationship with God is what we should strive for. Jesus is saying the most foolish thing that any one of us could do is to use up all our time, all our energy in this temporary life and live it just for us. And then in the next life be so poor and not end up in heaven with Jesus Christ. All the reasons that the guy in the story was a fool was the result of this one thing, that he was not rich with God. He wanted to be rich with his possessions. So how do we become rich in a relationship with God? Here you go. Here's the first thing I want you to know. Having a rich relationship with God begins by knowing that you are his chosen treasure. What does that mean? It means that not only you are precious, you're his treasure, you're precious. He takes care of you. He makes sure that you are taken care of, like you're his treasure. But you're chosen. It's not like you were just given to him. He's like, oh, what do I do? Okay, I'll take care of it. No, he's like, I'm going to choose you. I'm going to choose you. I'm going to choose you to be my treasure. You are a chosen treasure. You know what that means? That means that when greed tells you that you need more stuff, more things, it lies to you because you think that it's about getting more, where really life is about being and not having. So the reason why you want to have more is because you will become something more. So, for example, I don't know if you know a little bit of a difference between a man and a woman when it comes to clothes. So, when a woman goes to her closet and says, I have nothing to wear, right? It's different than when a man goes to his closet and says, I have nothing to wear. So, a woman usually is like, I have nothing to wear. It means like, I have nothing new to wear. Where a guy goes and he's like, I have nothing to wear. It means I have nothing clean to wear, right? Anyway, we want to buy nice clothes so that when people look at us and the way we're dressed, that they will respect us. And so we buy a different outfit, and greed says you need more, you need better, you need nicer, you need more expensive. And you think that it's about having more, but actually, no, it's like all these things that we want to acquire is because it will make us be something more. And Jesus knows this, so he's like, hey, I want you to know that you don't need to be any more than what you already are because you are a chosen treasure. It's like God looks at you and he knows all the deepest, darkest secrets of your life, and guess what? He still chooses to love you. He's like, I know, nobody knows, but I know, I've seen it, and guess what? I still choose to love you. And the good news of the gospel is that he's like, hey, just as you are. You don't need to change to come to me. I receive you just as you are. Come to me just as you are. I love you just as you are. But I love you so much that I don't want you to stay where you are, because you can be more like the image of Jesus Christ. And he's like, so as you come, I will make you into the image of Jesus. You see, it's not like, come to me and then you will make yourself into the image of Jesus. It's like, come to me and I will make you more into the image of Jesus. That's the whole truth that Jesus is trying to explain to us, saying like, hey, beware of all types of greed. Have a rich relationship with God. And what that means is, the first thing is to know that you are God's chosen treasure. In Peter, 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9, it says, but you are God's chosen treasure, priests who are kings, a spiritual nation, set apart as God's devoted ones. He called you out of darkness to experience his marvelous light, and now he claims you as his very own. That's beautiful. So here we learn that the antidote to that feeling or the symptom of greed is to learn to live from a place of wholeness, contentment, that Jesus gives to you by knowing that you are fully loved and accepted by God the Father. That gives you that peace that you need from inside out. But there's more. Having a rich relationship with Jesus or with God is to have this practice, this continued practice of contentment and generosity. Those two go together. So having a relationship with God is to continue having this practice of contentment and generosity. The antidote to greed is generosity. The Apostle Paul in Ephesians 4, he's talking about a bunch of sins that people were doing. And then he tells thieves, like, stop stealing. But it's interesting because he goes on to this process of teaching a thief how to no longer be a thief. And it's like, okay, so when does a thief stop being a thief? And he's like, is it when the thief stops stealing? No. Is it when a thief stops stealing and finds a job? No. He says a thief stops being a thief when the thief stops stealing, gets a job, and then share what he has with those in need. You see, the antidote to greed, because that's really why thieves steal, right? Because they're like, I don't have it, I want it, I'll just take it. So the antidote to greed is generosity. It's sharing with others who are in need. There's a passage in the Bible in Philippians chapter 4, verse 11 through 13, where the Apostle Paul is saying, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need. If you don't know the Apostle Paul's story, when he got saved, he at times he was homeless. He didn't have anything to eat. He was beaten. He was in prison. He was stoned. And so he's like, I have been in need. I know what it is like to be in need. And I know what it is to have plenty. Before he came to Christ, he was rich. He was a lord, and he had a lot of wealth. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. And then he says, I can do all this through him who gives me strength. You know, you may have heard this verse before, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And this is one of those verses that is taken out of context a lot, right? Like, I'll give you an example. So over the summer, my son CJ, who's out in college, was home, and he works out. He works out every day. And so he said, Dad, come work out with me. So I went to work out with him, and he's like, today we're doing chest and bi. I'm like, all right, let's do it. So we get on the bench press, and he puts a couple of 45 pounds on both sides, and then he gets there, and I'm like, do you want me to spot you? He's like, no, Dad, I got this. I'm like, all right. So he goes and, 1, 2, 3, and he's pushing that thing. And I was like, as a father, I was so proud. I'm like, wow, look at my son, 18 years old, and he's so strong, right? So it was my turn. I'm like, all right. So he's like, Dad, so I'm going to take this off. What do you want? I'm like, what do you mean take this off? Like I can do it. He's like, no, Dad, for real. I'm like, if you can do it, of course I can do it. He's like, no, Dad, like, trust me. I'm like, I trust you. I can do it, right? Okay, so I get there, and I'm like, okay. He's like, you want me to spot you? I'm like, I got this. So I go, and I'm like, ugh, and I can't lift the thing off the hook. And I'm like, ugh, and he's like, I told you that. I'm like, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Here you go, 1, 2, 3. And I could not do it. And he's like, Dad, it's all about technique. It's not about strength. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah. But we use that verse a lot in our lives. I can do this. But the context of that verse is when Paul is talking about, like a life of contentment. Hey, I can do this, not by my own power. I can do this. I can live without a job because I lost my job. I can do this. I don't know where I'm going to sleep tonight, but you know what? I can do this. I've suffered a great loss in my life, and I feel like I cannot go on, but I can do this. Not by my own power, not by my own strength. The Apostle Paul is saying you can do this through Christ who lives in you by the presence of the Holy Spirit inside of you. Yeah. It's something supernatural. It's supernatural. It's like, I don't got it, but the Holy Spirit in me got it, and He's going to help me through this. So look at our last verse. The Apostle Paul comes to Timothy, and he's like, I want you to teach the church this. I want you to teach them to choose contentment and generosity. So he's like, tell them to use their money to do good. They should be rich in good works and generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others. By doing this, they will be storing up their treasure as a good foundation for the future so that they may experience true life. If I were to ask how many of you in here, online, and outside would like to experience true life, I know that it would be 100% of people saying, like, I do, here on earth and in all eternity in heaven. Now, true life, according to the Apostle Paul, is not found in the abundance of possessions. It's not found in having a lot of stuff, but it's found in having a rich relationship with God. And so we see ourselves as hands and feet of Jesus, using what God has given to us to love those whom He loves. And as we come to an end, I want to invite the band to come up. And I want you to think about this. Just to take a moment to apply this into your life and say, what's my next right step? And so we're going to put that fill in back on screen where I asked you to think about the words that you would put there. And hopefully you have chosen a couple of words there. And now that you know what Jesus thought about greed, contentment, and generosity, I want you to know that whatever words you put there, they are lies. Because there's nothing that if you just have more will really make you become something. And the only thing is a rich relationship with God. The only thing is I can do this through the power of the Holy Spirit that lives in me. And I want you to take some time to pray right now. So will you stand with me? Go ahead and close your eyes, bow your head so you can focus. And I want you to pray and say, like, God, help me. Help me to, and then fill in the blank there. Like, I have been, like, killing myself in the pursuit of this thing that I thought would bring me joy and happiness and contentment, just to find that it's all a lie. Help me to have a rich relationship with you. Help me to trust in the power of the Spirit that lives in me, that helps me to do anything when it comes to being in need or having much, wanting something or being content, hoarding it all to myself or being generous. Help me, God. And as you think about that, we're going to sing one last song. And this song is called Jireh. And Jireh is a Hebrew word that is one of the names of God. And it means provider. So when we say Jehovah Jireh, it means God is my provider. And I want you to make this song your prayer. So as you hear the lyrics, as you sing the lyrics, I want you to say, this is my prayer toward you, God, this morning. That you would be everything to me, because I know that I am everything to you. I am your chosen treasure. I know that in you I am enough. I don't need to prove anything to anybody. I have nothing to prove and nobody to please, because you already love me to the max. Make this song your prayer as we continue to sing.